On August 2nd, 2024, the Music and Arts record label released a CD that features the fantastic playing of the renowned Ukrainian-American pianist Anna Shelest. Called Donna Voce Volume 2, this CD features music written by women composers, specifically music of Fanny Mendelssohn-Hesel, Melanie Bonis, and Olena Ilnytska. The Donna Voce project presented by Anna Shelest is an ongoing musical project that celebrates music written by women composers from the 18th through the 21st century. The first volume of this series featured music of Amy Beach, Clara Schumann, Cécile Cheminade, Lily Boulanger, and others. For this second volume, Shelest tackles the charming, virtuosic, and beautiful piano cycle written by Fanny Mendelssohn called Das Jahr, or the Year. Consisting of 13 piano pieces, this work serves as a musical diary of the year, with each movement representing a month of the year, starting with January and ending with a postlude. The other piano cycle on the disc consists of music of the French composer Melanie Bonis. Celeste wonderfully performs Bonis' seven-movement piano work called Femmes de Légende, or Legendary Women, that was written over the span of more than 20 years, beginning around 1890 and continuing on until 1914. Rounding out the disc is a dramatic piano nocturne written by the Ukrainian composer Olena Ilnytska. This is a really terrific disc, and joining me here over Zoom to talk about Donna Voce Volume 2, I am joined by Anna Shelest. Hey, Anna, nice to meet you here over Zoom.
Hi, Chris. Nice to be with you.
hmm I first of all want to start out the interview by saying your name is not unfamiliar to our Classic 107 listeners. We regularly program yours and Dimitri's Ukrainian disc here on the station, and Donna Voce also gets programmed as well. I first want to start out the conversation by asking, why are you so interested in piano literature that is more off the beaten path?
Well, I think it's something that I came kind of unexpectedly when I was a student. If somebody told me that this would become kind of my passion, I would be very surprised because I played standard repertoire. This is what I loved. This is what got me into classical music. But I think it just maybe a little bit of a process of self-discovery. Maybe it's about kind of reacting to things that are happening around us. I think many factors, but I realized that something I really like to do is take a score and without listening to any other interpretations, without kind of having any preconceived notions about it, try to make sense of it. And I actually have done it with standard repertoire. Always, this is kind of one of my part of my process. I prefer to uh, come to my interpretation by myself. And this has just been such a fun thing to explore. And I was really surprised how much great music we really don't know.
Yeah.
The standard repertoire, it's just a tiny, tiny part. And I think what's exciting to me about this is that I see that every performer, you can kind of carve out a place for yourself. And today, it's so easy to share music, even, you go on social media, that when you like something, you don't have to even wait for the concert. You can kind of tell people about it. So it's been really kind of a fascinating process. And along the way, I discovered so many composers, so many pieces, and I feel like I don't have enough time to really do anything. And CD, it's one of the ways that you can really commit to the program. So yes, you
Right.
have any interest, but if you make a recording, you're saying, okay, I'm going to commit to this like 70 minutes of music, and I would really do it. So, but it's definitely been a really fun adventure for me.
It's fantastic. And yet, it seems strange that Das Jahr by Fanny Mendelssohn-Hensel would be considered off the beaten path. It's a masterpiece for piano cycle. It's just fantastic. When did you first discover it, and how long did it take you to decide that you wanted to record it?
So I first discovered it about 2018. This was when I was doing research for my first Donna Voce.
Mhm.
So I was looking through all the composers, but I thought that it's such a large scale work. At the time, I wasn't ready to kind of to commit to it, honestly, because I wanted to do more like a survey of many women composers. So my first recording of Donna Voce, it was kind of almost snippets of different styles. But I came across it and I made a note for myself that like this is really something to do. And then during pandemic, I had no concerts. And I actually made a plan. I've never done anything like this. I made a plan that every month I will learn and I will record a video of that month. Because when you don't have concerts, it's really difficult to have motivation to like really
Mhm.
uh, finish the work. So this was my way to sort of say, okay, I'm gonna take a year, and it was really such a fun way to, and no pressure at the time. You know, I had the whole year, and then when it all came together in December, we did the last video. I was like, wow, it's even better than I thought this piece is. So doing it actually in the recording studio, I did it like a year after that. So I really lived with that piece. So yes, I guess it was kind of a silver lining of not performing for the audiences and having more time to just do a project like that.
Mm. Um, it's such a wonderful piano cycle. There's so many wonderful contrasts and tonal colors in the piano and beautiful lines. Did it cause you any grief at all, or were there any challenges that Fanny Mendelssohn wrote in the piano writing?
Yes, I think her music is very challenging, and it's surprising because we I think this is changing somewhat now, but we sort of know about her that she was talented sister of Felix, and she wrote more kind of salon pieces, even though it isn't so. But the piece of such scale and such virtuosity, I think it was meant maybe like she was meaning it for the future of Fanny, or the Fanny that might have been living at, you know, with different circumstances, because it's quite grand scale. And I do think that she had plans for it, for publications. There were probably kind of long-term plans for this piece, but unfortunately, we do not know much about it because she hasn't really wrote in her letters in her diary about the piece. But it's hard for me to imagine that creating something of that scale, she was just writing it kind of just for the family circle. I think I'm sure she was hoping that someday people would appreciate it, and I'm, you know, happy that I came across this work.
Mm. So you mentioned publication, and I was reading the booklet to the CD. Can you talk about the publication? When was it published?
So the amazing thing is that it was discovered, only discovered in 1989. So I think this is really the biggest factor in why we don't know this piece. Because if it had been discovered earlier, I think people would be impressed by it and would play it, and it would be part of the repertoire. So again, I think it's not unheard of in classical music where something is written and then it sort of sits on the shelves somewhere, and then people discover it, and now we have this amazing masterpiece. But it takes a long time for pieces to kind of establish themselves in the repertoire, and I think now enough time has passed. I'm hoping maybe another decade or two, and then everybody will know this piece.
Yeah.
It will be, you know, kind of a favorite for the audiences to hear.
Yeah, yeah, it's really great. I was also reading. Yeah, it was discovered in 1989 and published then, but it was also published in 2000 with the drawings that her husband Willem Hensel did for each one of the months. Have you looked at both publications, and is there musically any difference between the two, if you have?
I did. So I did not know about the difference until I sort of was halfway through the versions that I had. And then I looked at the kind of additions that she made. And what surprised me about it, so first of all, let me just tell you a little bit about the additions. She gave das Jahr as a gift to her husband, painter William Hensel, as a Christmas gift. And after he received it as a Christmas gift, they sort of redid the whole cycle. He contributed the drawings for each month, and I guess she copied and changed somewhat some of the movements. So the biggest difference in the newer version is that the ending is much more humble, I would call it. She really toned it down. And I almost felt like maybe she was like apologizing, or she felt it was not appropriate for the lady to make, such a grand statement. For me, maybe also because my first impression was this really amazing virtuosic finale. It was hard to understand what was the purpose of it. So my explanation, again, we do not have any justifications from her, is that she was trying to maybe even not upstage her brother, or just not to create too much waves.
Yeah.
And I really loved the first version. I think it's to me is has so much contrast, so much drama. It's preferable, but I do see how the other version can also work. It's a little bit more intimate. Maybe she was thinking to scale it down for like a salon performance or something like this. But I think it's certainly one of those issues that people will be debating, I think, in the future. And it's interesting how each performer justifies their choice of which versions they choose to play.
Yeah, yeah. One of the other things, and I didn't know this, was you provided in the booklet, there's these wonderful little snippets of poetry by the likes of Goethe and Schiller, Uhlan, and others. Was that poetry included in the autograph manuscript? Where does that poetry come from?
So we don't know for sure. It was not in the original, but it was in the second version. So
Okay.
I think they, as a family, they were so in love with art, with literature, with poetry. So probably some of the poems were, she was influenced by them. There is really no precise way of knowing, because the poetry and drawings, they appeared at the second version. But it seems like they so organically kind of represent what and kind of help to push your imagination into that direction where the music goes, that it sort of becomes really part of the organic process of how probably this music was created.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's a great cycle, and the recording on the disc is Anna is just fantastic. The other cycle on Donna Voce Volume 2 is the Melanie Bonis cycle, Femme de Légende. I love this cycle. There's a Canadian pianist who recorded it last year. It's so impressionistic and so beautiful. Um, did the characters, like, of the heroines in the pieces, did they influence how you interpreted each one of the pieces by Boni?
I think definitely, because in some of the movements, it's so striking, the colors that she's creating. For example, like Ophelia, it's you just hear the waters and the drowning, and like the last gasps of, you know, of breathing. It's quite literal, and I think each movement. You can enjoy it without knowing, I think, anything about program element of this piece, because of the colors and atmosphere she creates. But I think if you know who's the name of the character, it kind of gives you additional level of understanding and enjoyment of the piece. But I think it's great for programming, because this is something I always think about. How do you present music that people might not have heard? And if you have this title Salome, or Desdemona, it's something that kind of sparks interest and curiosity. So it's just a great bonus to always have something like that.
Yeah, and I remember when I was researching this music, apparently Melody Boni didn't have the seven pieces in mind to be a cycle. my understanding is that they were compiled by her granddaughter. Is that right?
Well, they were not written at the same time. They were written over a period of over a decade, and she also published them with kind of different combinations. They're like still published one at a time or three at a time. They're different um, uh, ways of combining them. So I think that this is kind of the beauty of them. You can play all seven. There's actually orchestra piece that she wrote. It's called Cleopatra.
Uh,
So there is another kind of more even grand
Another heroine. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it could work both ways, but it certainly depends on how many program pieces you want to have on the program. You can do all of them at once.
Whenever I listen to Melanie Bonis' music, for me, and maybe I'm just internalizing things, I always think that there's like this melancholy very often in her music. She led a very different life than Fanny Mendelssohn-Hensel. Fanny Mendelssohn-Hensel got the best in music education and instruction from her parents, and it wasn't the case with Melanie Bonis. Do you think some of that melancholy made its way into the Femme de Legion piano cycle? Do you hear any of that?
Yes, and I think to me this kind of central conflict of her uh, identity, if we may use that word, is that she was deeply religious person on one side, and then on the other side she was a very sensual person, and she had very interesting kind of romantic life. And I think for her, we know she felt a lot of guilt over this.
Mm.
Um, and I think writing these characters, which are, very essential music, from somebody who also wrote a lot of organ music, and she was inspired to write, for church, for God. Knowing about her upbringing, she grew up in a very, very strict household, and her parents actually they did not approve of musicians. They did not. They thought it was the worst idea for their daughter to be running around with some artists. So I think it was something that. Um, just knowing these little pieces of information about her, you wonder how one person can combine kind of these two conflicting sides. And to me, the femme intelligence, it's almost like an escape for her. Like she could be completely free and express these emotions, these senses in the music without any restrictions. But in life, it was a different story.
Yeah, very different. Yeah, yeah. And then rounding out the disc, you've got Olena Ilnytska's first piano nocturne. It's super dramatic. It's a great piece. Have you met her? And if so, did she give you any tips or insights to the nocturne?
I haven't met her in person, but we've been in touch on Facebook. It's so easy today to connect with musicians. So I came across this piece in New York. I played it at the Ukrainian Contemporary Festival. It takes place every spring. And when I learned this piece, I thought it would be perfect, like to finish Donna Voce, because it has title nocturne, or right away you understand, it's going to be something about the nighttime, but it's completely fascinating, kind of her take on it. And she does provide for the performer quite descriptive program notes of what it is. This piece is her way of representing what the night sounds like. So if in a way it's actually more representative of the night than say like a Chopin nocturne, right? Because
Mm.
if you go, I don't know, in the woods and it's quiet, what are you gonna hear? You're not gonna hear a melody, right? You're gonna hear cracking of the tree, and then like all these noises, and then you don't know, are you imagining these things, are they happening for real? So in a way, even though this music, it's you could say it's very abstract, it tries to recreate these senses, these sounds that we might hear at night when things are quiet and mysterious, and it's almost like illusions or dreams. something of the sort. So I thought it was just a fun way to end the album, and kind of it leaves it almost open-ended, with a kind of with a question mark what it means. It would mean different things to different listeners.
Uh, yeah, it's a great piece. I also noticed, I was reading the booklet, that the project is supported by the Sorel organization. Can you talk about that organization a bit?
So Sorel organization in New York, as they were founded by Claudette Sorel, who was a wonderful pianist and teacher, and a person who really understood that she faced challenges as a woman musician, and she established the foundation in the name actually of her parents, to help women in music. And something like a project, women composers kind of fitted that um, idea. And I'm very grateful for their support, because I think, especially music that's been written long time ago, we need support, we need artists, we need organizations to all of us kind of working together to bring it to life today.
Absolutely. The disc is just great. I'm going to wrap up the conversation by asking, I'm presuming you're planning on playing some of this rep in upcoming performances. Is that the case?
I do, but probably it will be already 2025. I've had quite a lot of different repertoire this spring, this fall, sorry. But I'm excited to kind of take it on the road, and I'm kind of making some plans for that. And it would be great to kind of play it in live concerts as well.
Fantastic. Anna, this has just been a real treat to sit down and talk with you about Donna Voce Volume 2. It is now in full rotation here, and I'm anxiously looking forward to Volume 3. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me today. This has just
So
been a
much.
real thrill.
Thank you. Thank you so much.